Kim Jong-un has agreed to halt missile and nuclear tests ahead of his in-person meeting with President Trump.
We could be on the cusp, frankly, of the most significant diplomatic achievement since the Marshall Plan post-World War II.
The Democratic National Committee filed a lawsuit today against the Russian government, the Trump campaign, and the WikiLeaks organization.
To come and make up these excuses about why Democrats lost, I think is pathetic. They had a bad message. They had a bad candidate. They're the ones that colluded with the Russians.
Fox News confirming that Comey is under investigation for leaking the memos.
Comey has hurt himself and raised very serious questions about his ethics and his behavior and perhaps his criminal liability.
It looks like I will not be able to be home for your birthday, but I hope this makes up for me not coming home. Daddy! Daddy!
Straight to a Fox News alert this morning. Major progress with North Korea, the communist country putting its missile testing on hold and closing one of its nuclear sites.
President Trump calling it, quote, big progress, tweeting that he's looking forward to his high-stakes face-to-face meeting with the dictator in North Korea, Kim Jong-un.
The two expected to talk further about the isolated kingdom getting rid of its nukes altogether. According to state television, the testing has stopped effective immediately. The rogue nation also vowing to engage in conversations with its neighbors to secure peace in the Korean peninsula.
Good morning to all of you.
Big news day.
Big news day. It's great to have Ed and Todd on the couch. And there is a lot of news to get to. First and foremost, North Korea. This might be the most significant foreign policy since we have seen from Nixon. Remember Nixon going to China?
Absolutely.
It reminds me a little bit of that time in our country's history. We don't know ultimately where this will lead, but this is a huge moment in history. This is good news for President Trump and more evidence that having tough talk actually might mean something.
Yeah, and I think Kim Jong-un clearly has been worried about the unpredictability of this president and the fact that he means business, something that Kim Jong-un was not afraid about going back to the Obama days.
And so many people have put this as the number one foreign policy issue facing America right now. Many of those same people said President Trump, nobody's going to be able to fix this. It appears that President Trump has gotten one step closer. We're going to bring in Jim Hansen right now, President, Security Studies. He served in the U.S. Army Special Forces, conducted counterterrorism operations. Jim, how big of a development is this?
It's huge. I mean, there's no question this is unprecedented. The bottom line is no one was expecting anything good to come of President Trump's fiery rhetoric, except people who understand that diplomacy works better with a credible threat of military force backing it up. That's the reality. You have to have that iron fist in a velvet glove. And guess what? It's worked. It's brought Kim to the table in ways none of President Trump's predecessors were able to do.
Yeah, you look at just this past year. I mean, late last year, remember, we had those tight sanctions put on North Korea. And then China crossed their own red line. They stopped oil and gas from going into North Korea. Then, of course, you had the Olympics where North and South Korea were working together. And then Trump publicly announcing that he would be willing to meet with Kim Jong-un. You look at all the events that have played out. And then most recently, Mike Pompeo going over there himself. What is the thing that sticks out to you as making North Korea open their eyes to say, you know, maybe we do need to work with the Western world?
Well, I think there's no question that the sanctions and increasing the pressure on the regime had an effect. But I think what actually sealed the deal was the belief by Kim Jong-un that he could lose that hermit kingdom, that President Trump, if he did not denuclearize, was willing to take the step of taking out his nuclear capabilities. That's something I don't think any of the previous presidents had managed to convince their Korean counterpart to actually believe.
And, Jim, the president's critics must be baffled because you rewind the tape about a year, and when the president was talking tough with North Korea, you remember, he talked about fire and fury. It became the title of that highly critical book, the idea that the president was out of control and couldn't put together a diplomatic achievement like this. And then I read the New York Times this morning, and right away this morning they say Mr. Kim made no mention in his latest remarks of dismantling the nuclear weapons and long-range missiles North Korea already has, meaning they're already trying to find something wrong with this. Kim Jong-un is saying we're stopping testing. Big deal. And the president's critics already trying to find some reason to say it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I was reliably informed by all of these people that President Trump's rhetoric was going to cause a nuclear war. Now that the exact opposite is happening, as you say, they're quibbling and they're tap dancing and trying to back away. Here's what actually happened. North Korea has agreed to talk about denuclearization. They've said they'll do it. They're talking to South Korea about ending a half-century-old war, and they've told the South Koreans that none of this is even tied to the U.S. leaving the peninsula. So we have to take a very trust but verify and a very low level of trust at that approach to this. But this is a major opportunity, and this is a win for President Trump's policies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim Henson live for us this morning. Great insight. Jim, thank you. And it also sort of underscores the need to get Mike Pompeo confirmed immediately. He's the one that went there to North Korea, set all this in motion. Got to get it done.
Well, this is big news this morning. But there's a lot going on in Washington as well. James Comey, as we have seen throughout the week, making his media tour about his book. But there are a lot of questions now, Ed, about what he might have said under oath, whether or not he was always honest.
James Comey officially now under investigation. That's the other big news breaking overnight. The Justice Department Inspector General, we knew he was reviewing the FBI and the Justice Department's handling of the Clinton investigation, a whole bunch of other matters. But these Comey memos, the 7 memos targeting President Trump in their meetings and phone calls, it turns out the Wall Street Journal reporting first, Fox and others confirming that at least 2 of these memos had classified information. That now under investigation and really puts James Comey on defense because remember, he testified under oath last year to Congress that in these memos, he went out of his way not to put classified information.
He said he avoided classified material in the memos so that they could be widely shared. These are memos, I like to call them his personal diary, because that's essentially what they are.
He went through his friend to leak them out, and it had classified information.
Right. So the president is tweeting about this, as you can imagine. He says James Comey illegally leaked classified documents to the press in order to generate a special counsel. Therefore, the special counsel will establish based on a legal act. Really, does anybody know what that means?
So really, right now, the question that everybody's wondering, did James Comey commit an illegal act? Keep in mind, you mentioned the July 2017 testimony in front of the Senate. The January 2017 memo that was leaked said the word secret on it. Now we're going to get into what does secret mean? What level of classification does secret mean? And if that is determined to be a significant level of classification, James Comey could be in trouble. Remember, James Comey and Andrew McCabe, not necessarily buddies over the course of the last 48 hours.
They used to be tied to him because they were number 1, number 2, and now they keep pointing fingers at each other saying, well, I didn't know about that. Well, I didn't know about that either.
Right. Here's why it really matters, though. James Comey wrote these memos and leaked them out in part to help build the case for a special counsel, which was named Robert Mueller, suggesting that maybe there was collusion and suggesting maybe there was obstruction of justice. Now, what the president's tweet is saying is, was that rotten fruit, basically?
Fruit of the poisonous tree, exactly.
There you go. You understand the legal term. And the bottom line is, does that mean that these memos with classified information, it may have been illegal for James Comey to leak them out there with that classified information? Is this now rotten fruit that led to the special counsel investigation? And the legal principle basically is, so if there's an illegal traffic stop and a police officer finds drugs in your glove compartment, there's a problem. They can't charge you. And so the president's tweet is clearly trying to delegitimize this investigation.
But the irony of all of this, if the Mueller probe comes to an end and there are signals that might be slowing down a bit, you have Mueller telling the president that he's actually not a target in that case. He's a subject. But the irony that at the end of all of this, it could be McCabe, not McCabe. It could be, Andy McCabe that goes down.
Well, McCabe has a criminal referral for himself as well. By the way, also breaking is the fact that the DNC yesterday decided to sue the Trump campaign, sue Russia, and sue WikiLeaks. A lot of people scratching their head. Why now? What in the world is going on here?
Well, also, how do you even sue a country?
We're going to get
to
that.
That's a big question that I have. So here is the DNC chair, Tom Perez, on that lawsuit. Take a listen.
We want to send a very, very clear signal. If you want to mess with elections here, there are going to be consequences. We are raising the cost of your interference. We know that this administration is Putin's poodle, and so they're not going to do anything. So we will continue to act. If you want to do that, if you're going to punch us, we're going to punch back. And that's what this lawsuit is about. We are protecting our democracy. When you go after the right to vote, when you go after the institution of elections, that is the essence of our democracy. So this wasn't simply an attack on the DNC. This was an attack on our democracy.
The phrase Putin's poodle sounds like a great band name, but seriously, we got to break this down. Russia, you can sue them all you want. They're never going to pay. No matter what your dad can make them do, they're never going to pay. Part 2, you have a situation where WikiLeaks is really protected by the First Amendment. And, oh, by the way, the collusion aspect, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got a special counsel going on right now trying to find collusion.
I think this is a sign that they're nervous, that this, as I said earlier, is coming to an end. And they're like, well, what do we have now? This comes across as very petty. It comes across as they're scrambling to keep this as a headline, keep this in the news, to find something there, to find some sort of collusion that happened, which, as far as we know, with this investigation, there still is no evidence of that.
And
so
the Trump campaign is firing back the re-election campaign, not the 2016 campaign.
They're the ones being sued. It's the campaign.
Right,
it's not President Trump himself.
So Brad Parscale, he's going to be the chief in 2020. This is a sham lawsuit, he tweeted, about a bogus Russian collusion claim filed by a desperate, dysfunctional, and nearly insolvent Democratic Party. With the Democrats' conspiracy theories against the president's campaign evaporating as quickly as the failing DNC's fundraising, they've sunk to a new low to raise money, especially among small donors who have abandoned them. And that's kind of an untold story there, which is that we're coming up on these midterms where the Democrats believe they have a head of steam. And yet, financially, the DNC has been in desperate shape. You would think if you're about to take out the president and his party, you'd be flush with cash. The DNC is not.
You know what, it sounds like this is their strategy to try and raise a little bit of dough, and we know how that works.
It's clear this is a fundraising strategy, or keep in mind, it could be an attempt to depose people in a civil case where the bar, much
Either
lower.
way, good luck suing Russia. We'll see how that plays out. All right, I do want to bring you some other headlines we are following this morning, starting with a Fox News alert and a manhunt for a cold-blooded killer intensifying at this hour after he took off right before a jury found him guilty of murder. Verlaine Laguerre walking away during a lunch break at a courthouse in Atlanta. Laguerre had been free on bond. He and another man were convicted of shooting a 19-year-old college football player 50 times. Yikes. All right, we'll throw out all romaine lettuce. Did you hear about this?
Yes.
That is the urgent warning from the CDC. You guys are so bad.
Steak.
This is an urgent warning from the CDC. The massive E. coli outbreak that started in Arizona, it just got bigger. So far, 53 people from coast to coast have gotten sick. The recall now covers all forms of romaine, including whole heads and hearts of romaine. Health officials also said avoid eating it at restaurants, at least for right now. We'll keep an eye on that one to see how it changes. Well, the world preparing to say a final goodbye to the Bush family matriarch. Former First Lady Barbara Bush will be laid to rest today during a private service in Houston. Several First families expected to attend the invitation-only funeral, including the Obamas, the Clintons, and First Lady